So welcome back, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this SecurityBoulevard.com program brought to you by Techstrong and Zscaler. My name is Cody, and I'm the host of Techstrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead. First, I do need to cover just a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, maybe you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend. The on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session. If you have any questions, we want you to send those into the Q&A tab on the right side of your screen. If we're not able to get to your question during our program today, we are going to make sure that Amy and Anusha receive those questions and they can get back to you in a post-webinar email. Now, if you look on the right side of your screen, you'll also see there's a chat tab. I'd like you to start warming that up for me now. Let us know where you're joining us. During the program, feel free to keep using that chat tab for any relevant information that you'd like to add to the conversation or any good points that you hear from our speakers. If you click the handouts tab, you'll see there are a handful of resources that are available for you. So feel free to grab those. And of course, before we close out, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So be sure to stick around for the duration of our discussion. So our topic today is time to cut the cord, 4 easy steps for cloud native firewall migration. I'm joined today by Anusha Vaidyanathan, Director of Product Management at Zscaler, and Amy Heng, Marketing Manager at Zscaler. So Anusha and Amy, thank you both so much for being here with me. Anusha, would you like to get this conversation kicked off?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Hi, my name is Anusha Vaidyanathan. I'm Director of Product Management at Zscaler. I have about 20 years of experience building firewalls, VPNs back in the day to cloud security products in recent times. I also have a background with SD-WAN. I've worked in small companies, startups, as well as large companies, and excited to be building growth products at Zscaler. Over to you, Amy.
Hey, so I'm Amy. I work with Anusha very closely here at Zscaler as the PMM, but I also take care of Sandbox and Cloud Swag, so all things ZIA. Been in cybersecurity since 2017, a little startup here, a big company there. So it's been a good while, and I'm definitely excited to kick this webinar off. Awesome. So, if we were to whiteboard a traditional network architecture and the dozen or so more security tools that we use, this is probably what it's going to look like. And for a long time, the balance of firewalls, VPNs, SWIGs, switches, and routers provided the perfect balance for protecting against external threats. But let's face it, right? Some organizations and agencies still look like this today, maybe even yours. And at the heart of your multi-layered security ecosystem that protects the perimeter of the network is your firewall. I mean, if you can't already tell, there it is, right in the middle of this diagram. And if you were inside the firewall, you were trusted. And if you were outside of the firewall, you were untrusted. And for a long time, this castle and moat architecture or security model, whatever you want to say, worked really, really well. And actually, Anusha, you and I have worked together for a while now. I think you did mention at some point that you worked at NetScreen to build firewalls, right?
Yes, back in the day, I did work on NetScreen firewalls more than 15 years ago. But in their time, they were great firewalls. But then fast forward to 2023, you don't have users entirely at the offices. We have hybrid remote users all over the world, and you don't have applications entirely in the data center. So your trust and untrust zones that was front and center to what firewalls meant back in the day are no longer relevant or valid. So we have to move to a zero trust model.
Yeah, that's a really great segue because, again, these firewalls, these traditional legacy outdated firewalls are notorious for unrestricted access, which just means that it's just going to create more business risks for you. For example, if you had a guest who joined in a conference room with you and they plugged into a network port, guess what? They're on your internal network. And this is the same type of concept across the board with your contractors, your Wi-Fi network, your server workloads, your devices. Just, it's going to create more business risk today. And today's business, again, is very mobile. And this expanded attack surface leaves room for lateral movement. So while your firewall devices can attempt to scan the high volume of traffic that's being created today for threats, the truth is most traffic today is also now encrypted. So you're going to need a dedicated SSL device on top of your firewall to perform those inspections. Google actually did a research report that detailed that over or around 90% of the traffic it generates today is actually encrypted, so HTTPS. Imagine the performance bottleneck your legacy firewalls are going to cause, right? And this is also really surprising. We just released this last month. But our threat research team discovered that more than 85% of attacks today use some form of encrypted channel to deliver, malware or command and control activities. So across the various kill chain stage. And this is actually up 80% from our last report of encrypted attacks. So pretty crazy. But let's get back to business, right? Managing firewall devices is extremely resource heavy. Of course, if you're a network admin on this call, this is going to be very familiar with you, but you're probably going to be checking and analyzing traffic behavior on your edge or branch location. Then you're going to try to select the right firewall device based on the necessary specs that you need. Then you're going to stage that device. You're going to upgrade the software. You're going to configure the rules. And this is almost like per location in most cases. And then, of course, you're going to drive over to the data center, your branch office, and install the device into a rack. And of course, this is going to be continuous management of hardware refreshes, patches, and upgrades per device, per location. So now imagine that you want to deploy a next-gen firewall at all of your current internet egress points, or you want to upgrade your current firewalls to next-gen firewalls. This is going to be a really big project with lots of boxes, lots of site visits, and depending on your stress level and self-care, lots of countless hours. Take a deep breath, right? And this just gets harder to manage when your employees are off the network. These policies don't follow them where they go, and the protections just aren't effective anyways. Whew. And with that said, we surveyed a lot of network admins, and we found out that 75% of y'all have said that it is extremely challenging to manage firewall hardware upgrades and deployments. And it's really easy to shoot yourself in the foot. And funny enough, I have some friends who wanted me to share some stories here. I had a friend who was just starting out as a network admin when a denial of service or DOS attack started to happen on their watch. And at the time, they thought it would be a good idea to put a any-to-any rule so that traffic would pass through and so that alerts would stop. That's a bad idea. I have another friend who told me that he changed the IKE password incorrectly and subsequently took down the entire WAN VPN mesh. Human errors happen, guys. And of course, beyond the human error cost, there's also the total cost of ownership for firewall management. If you think about an enterprise grade device, they're going to run you about 30 to 250K for the latest ML run model. And typically you're going to need a pair. So 2 units per location when you're deploying these things. That's a lot of money. And then you're also going to have to think about traffic and sending it back to your devices. So your MPLS costs are going to be pretty expensive. And I've seen prices of upwards of over 100 times the standard cost of broadband internet lines. And then you also have to think about firewall management costs. So the hardware refreshes, the software and signature support, because those are sometimes SaaS models, right? That's going to cost you starting around 50K annually. So if you think about the CapEx and the OpEx costs of all of this, it is very expensive to manage firewall devices. And don't be fooled, because I know some of you are going to be like, well, what about my virtual firewalls? Well, they're just wolf in sheep's clothing. Virtual firewalls aren't cloud native. Sure, they can be cloud delivered, but they rely on hardware still. And this means that they experience the same performance degradation that will require you to, need to spin up more virtual instances. And they're not that secure either. They are still firewalls that extend your network outwards, expanding your attack surface. And did I mention that they tend to lag behind hardware refreshes? So what this kind of means, right? Back in the day, you had one perimeter to really look after, but now you're expanding attack surface, and the new way of work has really shifted your perimeter from 1 to thousands. And if you're trying to adopt a zero trust strategy, your legacy firewalls simply cannot deliver zero trust. They are unable to dynamically establish strict user authentication to ensure integrity and security posture of all of your assets. And they certainly can't dynamically change policies in real time if behavior or environments shift has been detected. Really, it's just time to cut the cord. Anusha?
It sure is. Thank you, Amy. So let's dive into the 4 steps for migrating to a cloud-native firewall. When we say a cloud-native firewall, we mean firewall as a service. That's the term that Gartner uses. As Amy talked about, a cloud-native firewall means there are no appliances, no maintenance windows on-prem, no patching on-prem, no forklift upgrades. The Zscaler firewall that is part of the Zero Trust platform is a cloud-native firewall. And let's dive into the steps to move to the Zscaler firewall. At first, you will start authenticating your users with your identity provider or Active Directory. So in a traditional firewall or VPN, you would make the connection first. Your rules are defined, your policies are defined. You make the connections first, and then authentication follows that. But in a Zscaler firewall, which adheres to strict zero trust principles, we see who you are, where you're going, what is the context of what you're doing and what you're accessing, and we first do that and then make the connection later. So put your identity provider, whether it's Microsoft Active Directory, your LDAP servers, or your single sign-on solutions like Okta or Ping Identity to use. You may also have invested in the newer technologies like passwordless authentication, multi-factor authentication. Put all that to use, integrate that with your Zscaler firewall, and make the switch. You can also use our Zscaler client connector as your IDP. If a Zscaler client connector is our lightweight agent that resides on your managed user's laptop, and it helps connect to the Zscaler cloud. If you don't have a very full-fledged IDP setup, you can also start with local authentication, a hosted database, as part of the Zscaler Zero Trust platform. So that was step one. Moving on to step two, adapting your local firewall rules to Zscaler Firewall. So Zscaler Firewall is the first line of defense in the Zscaler Zero Trust platform. As you may have seen literature about Zscaler, it is based on a proxy-based architecture. But Firewall is that first line of defense, and it protects all ports, all traffic, both web and non-web. And then it hands off traffic to the web layer or the proxy layer. You can adapt the local firewall rules for users, for devices, for branch firewalls, and even for virtual firewalls that protect your workloads and servers. So how exactly would you adapt the rules? So you will define the more granular rules at the top. For instance, our best practice is to block Tor and Quick. You would also define rules based on your department or group or location. So moving on to the next example here, I do have an engineering department accessing Azure apps. So notice how we've minimized the number of rules. There are no subnets configured here, and there's just one policy for engineering access to the dev environment in Azure. And we even defined that per location. You can mention here it says Budapest and New York. So you can leverage the power of fully qualified domain names instead of IP addresses to make those policies more dynamic. The next example I have is access to the time server or the NTP protocol. And again, you can define that access by group, by user, by location. To give you another example of a Zscaler firewall rule, here I do have the payment gateway and access to that payment gateway that is defined in this particular rule. So you can define different rules like this based on your industry and your enterprise. What we do discourage is defining any-to-any or allow all rules, which cause broad network access. They may be okay to use while testing, but definitely not okay in the production cloud. So far we looked at how we migrate rules based on users. So what about unauthenticated users, you may ask? Those that are in a guest Wi-Fi segment. Or devices like IoT and OT devices that need outbound access. Or your cloud workloads or servers in your data center that need to connect to the internet or to your user. We have several policies for unauthenticated traffic. We have special users that can handle a variety of cases based on, say, an unauthenticated protocol, an unauthenticated user agent, and so on. If special users doesn't work, say it's a device, you can define location-based policies. As in the example that you see here, there's location-based policies defined for a particular office, for some IoT devices. You can also fall back to IP-based methods like surrogate IP, which kind of pegs the user or device to a particular IP address and define policies based on that. So there are so many different options possible. And there's continuous monitoring of all these rules as you adapt and move them. You would monitor the device inventory, you'd monitor risk. All that is part of the Zscaler admin console. So talk about layered defense with the Zscaler platform. Another important step in migrating rules is pointing your DNS traffic to the Zscaler cloud. The cool thing is that we have 150 data centers at the time of recording this, at the time of at the time of this webinar. There are 150 data centers or points of presence. Leverage them so that your users, wherever they are in the globe, get optimal DNS resolution, whether they are in Atlanta in a home office or in their London office or Tokyo or San Francisco. Point them to the Zscaler trusted DNS resolver to resolve your DNS queries. So that's also part of the preparation as you adapt your local firewall rules to Zscaler firewall. That was a huge step 2. But as they say, well begun is half done. Once you have your rules in place and you've planned for your traffic, now the step 3 involves forwarding the traffic using different methods to the Zscaler Zero Trust platform. Our recommended method is to use our client connector, which is a lightweight agent that runs on your users' laptops or managed devices. And we use a method called Tunnel 2.0, which tunnels traffic. It is an encrypted tunnel using TLS or DTLS technologies to forward the traffic to the Zscaler cloud. And this protects all traffic, both web and non-web. Another way to send traffic is using GRE or IPsec tunnels if you're on site at a location. So regardless of the forwarding method, the Zscaler platform would create a forensically complete log. And it would uniquely log a particular session. And this is delight for your SOC teams. And this integrates really well with your SIM and source solutions as you have centralized logging and complete visibility for all your traffic from all locations. So that was forwarding traffic to Zscaler Cloud. And then step 4, the final step, is the time for action, where you're actually flipping the switch and turning on the firewall on a location, firewall IPS on a location by location basis. So that would prevent any connections and access to critical apps by rolling out Zscaler Firewall in phases. We do recommend that you don't flip the switch all at once for all locations. You do it on, say, a location by location basis at different periods of time. Monitor and make any changes as necessary. So those were the 4 steps in moving to a firewall. And then we have a bonus step, which is to, once you've done the monitoring, once you've seen that it works, it's time to throw a retirement party for your legacy firewall. Now you do have a strong business case to retire them completely. It's going to save your organization a ton of money on firewall management costs, hardware, software, even signature support costs. Another important thing that you can definitely give yourself kudos on is the fact that Zscaler data centers run on 100% renewable energy. So with the flip the switch to Zscaler Firewall, you've actually done a whole lot better than just saving money. As we saw, it was just flipping the switch, no more appliances, just firewall as a service, Zscaler Firewall that is part of the Zscaler Zero Trust platform, 100% cloud native and cloud delivered. Protects all traffic, both web and non-web, evasive applications, non-evasive applications. All right. So we saw the 4 steps to move to the Zscaler Firewall. So what business value does this provide? As we see, legacy firewalls and architecture costs a lot of money. And this is from our economic validation survey that we performed. We saw that patches and updates take about 8% of the budget, and so does deployment. Research takes a whole chunk of your IT budget. And so as monitoring itself is going to be a hard problem because of the number and size of firewalls. And as Amy mentioned, you always deploy your firewalls in pairs. So it's going to be a lot of work involved in patching them, remediating any issues, even doing penetration testing for each of them, as well as monitoring all that. But you save on all those costs, and that includes time free to focus on strategic goals as you move to the Zscaler firewall that is part of the Zero Trust platform. The amount of time and effort taken to actually do the planning, research, remediation, and monitoring is going to be a whole lot less when compared to legacy architectures.
And I know this isn't on this particular slide, but the ESG report that we're quoting here showed that our customers had a 90% reduction of appliances. So yes, you're saving time, but you're also saving the cost of appliances.
Yeah. And moving to renewable energy with the Zscaler cloud. Excellent. So I talked quite a bit about the Zscaler Zero Trust platform for those of you who are not familiar with it. The Zero Trust platform is a comprehensive platform that protects users, workloads, as well as your IoT and OT traffic. So all flavors are available. The Zscaler Firewall is the first line of defense that is part of the Zero Trust Exchange platform. It protects access to external apps, your SaaS and internet applications. So we block the bad and protect the good, provide cyber threat protection. We also protect internal apps, which includes applications in your data center, as well as your public cloud, your AWS, GCP, Azure environments, as your users connect to them. So we protect both external apps, internal apps, and all that is part of one platform, the Zero Trust Exchange. We also have ensure a great user experience with our digital experience monitoring that makes sure that your users have the best performance and the least latency as they connect to these applications. And of course, this is true for all users at all locations, and it is the same controls apply for devices, for workloads, servers, and so on. So Zscaler for users, a little bit about that, is a comprehensive, to quote the Gartner term, it's a security service edge platform. And it has several security services. We talked about the first line of defense, the Zscaler Firewall, which is a firewall as a service, as Gartner calls it. We have several other security services that is part of this portfolio or this platform. That includes our secure web gateway, CASB, DLP, Sandbox, as well as, which is all part of the data protection portfolio, which is a CASB and DLP, as well as digital experience monitoring that is also built in as part of the platform. So it is a comprehensive platform. We are a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader for several years.
Yes, and all of this is to say is Zscaler is the leader in secure digital transformation. We're very proud of our operational excellence that we've developed running the world's largest security cloud over the many years. And we've now expanded to over 150 exchanges, or as Anusha mentioned, these like data centers, right, that we own around the world. And we handle over 250 billion requests per day as of October 2022. So what that means is the number of traffic that we're analyzing, or packets, etc. We can see that many of the top companies across all verticals are our customers, and we're very lucky to have such great companies to represent as partners in continuing the innovation of our platform and products. And of course, as I mentioned, what makes Zscaler very unique and powerful, and also the extensibility of the platform, is thanks to the huge partner ecosystem that we support. So yeah, before you head off, we do have a couple remarks, right? So some key takeaways. Cloud native firewalls deliver extremely superior user experience and ubiquitous security for modern work today. So regardless of whether your users are in the office, on an airplane, in a coffee shop, or in their home office, like right now for me, you're going to have the same protection regardless of where they connect. And again, with what Anusha had mentioned with the forwarding traffic, if you configure your VCC for remote users or hybrid users, and they go into the office, they'll be able to seamlessly connect through an IPsec tunnel or a GRE tunnel, depending on how you've set it up. And again, there is significant cost to migrating to a cloud native firewall. You're cutting the cost of time for your network admins. You're cutting the cost, 90% of appliances. You're also realizing that there's going to be a centralized and forward policy management. Finally, right? You're not going to need to drive to that data center or that branch location and set up the same policies, right? You're going to just do it in one SaaS console. And the awesome thing is for customers who are transforming and adopting Zero Trust, we are the one true zero platform for that. If you want something a little bit more in-depth or you want this presentation to go, we are releasing our eBook, 4 Easy Steps for Cloud Native Firewall Migration. It's going to be available on our Zscaler website under the Resources tab, so definitely check there. And of course, if you are ready to just see a demo for yourself, here's a link that you can type in. And something that we're releasing this year is our Zero Trust certification. So if you want to be certified as an architect, you can go to this link below on the bottom right of your screen. I know this button seems like you can click it, but you can't. So don't worry, just go to the, just type this URL in. And I wanted to pass this back to Cody and Anusha for some Q&A that I think I have been spying in our chat window.
Awesome. I think you are correct. We've got a couple questions that have come in. So how do you protect inbound traffic to the branch?
Great question. So we talked about, so the Zscaler platform protects both external apps as well as internal apps. So for inbound traffic, you would use our Zscaler private access. So we don't recommend, defining any to all inbound policies. Instead, use a private access solution to protect inbound traffic for private applications. And the good thing is it also replaces your traditional VPNs.
So can Zscaler protect IoT devices and cloud workloads?
Definitely, yes. So the Zscaler firewall as a first line of defense protects not just your users, both your authenticated users, unauthenticated users, as well as your IoT and OT devices that may be talking to their services or servers outside. And it also protects your workloads, cloud workloads in AWS, Azure, GCP, as well as your servers in your data center that are making these outbound accesses. So all that is protected with the Zscaler platform.
So it was mentioned that you wouldn't need to be adding rules and policies to every individual location where information is being held. So how many rules and policies are in traditional firewalls, and what have you seen with those rules and policies in Zscaler?
Yeah, good question. So typically when people migrate from legacy firewalls to the Zscaler firewall, because of the constructs that we give, like you can define rules using your identity provider for departments, groups, and because of the dynamic nature, and you can define your policies using fully qualified domain names. So all this is going to minimize the number of rules. So traditionally, if you had tens of hundreds of rules, you would definitely minimize that as you go to Zscaler by a huge factor. I don't have that number at the top of my mind, but even large enterprises are able to make that migration rule minimization as they move to the cloud-native Zscaler firewall.
Yeah, and I think at one point you and I were talking about a power user who had over 500 Zscaler firewall rules in place because they were just all in. It was awesome.
And that was a very large enterprise too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So since so much traffic is encrypted nowadays, can Zscaler actually perform a full inspection?
Yes, and that is one of the biggest differentiators for the Zscaler platform, because we can perform SSL inspection at scale. So in a traditional firewall, the moment you turn on SSL inspection for all your traffic, your throughput is going to fall by a factor of, it's going to drop to even 1/3 or 50%. Right. So what traditional firewalls advertise is not what you get. That's not true with a cloud-native firewall and cloud-native platform that Zscaler is. So you can perform SSL inspection for all the traffic, the 250+ billion transactions. A majority of them is SSL inspected, and that is thanks to our proxy architecture and the way in which we've built the Zscaler cloud. So you get the best of both worlds. You do full SSL inspection where it matters, so you can look deeper into it and detect all attacks.
So is it possible that I can use Zscaler and keep my firewall?
If you choose to do so, yes, we understand that this is a journey. Migration to a cloud-based platform is a journey, and many companies, enterprises, big and small, have done this transformation and transition. But as we understand, it is a journey. And in that meantime, definitely you can keep your firewall. Some companies have done that. But what they've done is use that firewall as an edge router at their egress or branch office, and use it only to traffic forward to Zscaler. They've even turned off logging so that centralized logging from Zscaler takes effect, and that is makes it seamless for your SOC teams to analyze the traffic and look for any patterns. So yes, it is possible, and yeah, you can definitely crawl, walk, run as you make this transition and transformation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Amy, Anusha, it looks like we have exhausted all of our questions. So I do just want to give each of you one more opportunity to leave our audience with any closing remarks or final takeaways. So Anusha, would you like to get that kicked off?
Sure. Yeah, it's time to cut the cord with your legacy firewall and VPN appliances and make the transition to a cloud-native firewall that is part of the Zscaler Zero Trust Exchange.
And all I have to say is I'm already Zero Trust certified, and you can too. So if you're really interested, here is the link again. You do gain CPE credits for doing this learning. You do get a little badge and a LinkedIn certification. So if it is something you want to do, I will say it wasn't terribly too time intensive. And it's worth a try. Yeah.
Awesome. Amy, Anusha, thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
So at this point, I'd like to remind our audience that this session was recorded. So should you want to rewatch or share with a friend, you will be receiving an email with a link to access this recording on demand, or you can find it living on the Security Boulevard website at securityboulevard.com/webinars. The 4 winners of our $25 Amazon gift card drawing are Rianne D, Kathy S, Roderick S, and Fabio L. So to our 4 winners, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim your gift card. You should be getting that email in about the next 48 hours. But if you don't happen to see that, do check your spam folder. I'd like to thank Zscaler for sponsoring our program today. And to everyone who has joined us, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we also really appreciate your feedback. As soon as we close out, there will be a survey that pops up on your screen. And I'd like for you to tell us what you liked about our program today, or perhaps what you'd like to see on a future program. Otherwise, we do hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong learning experience. Have a great rest of your day. And Amy, Anusha, thank you both so much.